Hi, and welcome once again to Zuba's Corner, a space where the goal is always to inform, to learn, to motivate, to inspire, to encourage. Today, I'm going to be talking about a book I recently read, and it is titled How to Talk with God by Joyce Meyer. And like with all of her books, I really like this particular one because it's written simply. It reads like a conversation with someone. It's not too wordy, and it's just arranged in bite-sized pieces that allows you to take away something, even if you just read a few lines. And this particular book is interesting. I received it maybe a couple of months ago, but I just read it recently, and it is interesting because it addresses a topic I have recently been discussing with others. So, a little bit more about the book. It's divided into two sections, and the first section is an easy, enjoyable, effective prayer. And so, in this section, it's got four chapters, and it sort of essentially goes through how to enjoy praying. And I want to circle back to that because that to me, I mean, the entire book just had a lot of interesting information, informative things that are inspiring about prayer life. But that particular section, I think, was my main takeaway personally for me. The second section is titled How to Pray Powerful Prayers. It's got 9 chapters for this section, and she goes through some topics like having a humble heart when praying, focusing on others, having unwavering expectations. Again, some of these individual chapters, lots of good stuff that I took away that I'll be implementing. One of the other things she addresses is barriers to powerful prayers. So things like prayerlessness, worry, negative speech, doubts and unbelief, lack of boldness, etc., etc. And then, she dives into it in detail. So the book is a wonderful read. It's small. You can almost like a devotional of sorts. You can sort of read it section by section, a section per day, and you will know where you stopped. Just it's a really good book and a really easy read and packed with a lot of information. So now going back to the first section, why I said that was what captivated me the most. I think recently I've been having discussions with people about prayers, the importance of prayers, our prayer lives. And part of the reason why sometimes it is so difficult for us to cultivate an intimate prayer life with God outside of what happens, say, in church or when we're gathered with other people. And even in my own personal life, there have been times when earlier in my journey with God where I've kind of struggled to pray outside of those areas. Like the thought of prayer is almost a duty. Like it was easier then to pray in church or with others around. But as I continued my journey in God and even now presently, I've gotten to a point where I actually enjoy one-on-one time just talking to God. And so I'm able to address or assess this issue from both ends, both as someone who struggled with it and someone now who currently enjoys it. Part of it is a lot of us are raised to believe that prayer is a duty, that it has to be done a specific way, that it has to be done in a specific place. You have to have a posture. It's this really formal thing. And the problem with that is when we think of prayer as a duty, it becomes tiring at some point. For example, household chores. Everybody knows household chores is a duty. Even as you're a kid, you are assigned certain chores. It's monotonous. It has to be done. There aren't that many people I know who enjoy doing household chores, but it's done because it has to be done. It's a duty to be done. And there are days when you get really tired of it and you're sick of it and you look for ways to cut corners and can I do it some other time, and you're postponing it and it becomes a drag, and sometimes you do it just because it's a habit, but it's not really ooh, I've woken up today, I'm all peppy and gung-ho and I can't wait to do household chores this morning, you know? And a lot of the times we've been taught prayer like that. I have listened to men of God who've almost shamed people who, oh, if you don't quote scriptures while you're praying, you haven't prayed. If you don't pray for 5 hours, you haven't prayed. If you don't kneel down with your bare feet on gravel, you haven't prayed. If you haven't prayed under the hot baking sun, you haven't prayed. You know, if you have, there are all these shame attached to if you don't pray a certain way, if you don't do a certain thing, if you're not praying at the top of the lung or at the top of your lungs, you haven't prayed. And so now you have people who are trying to copy the way other people pray, and they can't sustain their prayer life that way, because really that is not their praying style, if you will. Something we forget is prayer is a conversation. We call it prayer, but really it's a conversation and communication with God, whom we should have an intimate relationship with. It's just like any other relationship. Our relationship with God is just like any other relationship, and it differs and is unique from person to person. If I can use, let's say, the nuclear family, parents, siblings, the way I communicate with my siblings is the way someone is different from the way someone else communicates with their siblings. I know families where the siblings, because of the age differences, do not address each other by their name. So the younger ones will address the older ones as, oh, sister or brother or something like that. I know families where the siblings is as if arguing is the way they communicate. I know families where the siblings are not that close. They don't hate each other. It's not a close thing. And yet I know families where they joke around a lot. I know families where between siblings, their speech is really informal. I know families where they share a lot of secrets, like everybody knows what is going on with the other person. But it differs from family to family. It is unique to each person. Even within the family, the way one sibling talks to another one is completely different. Like I'll tell you, the way my youngest sibling talks to me is different from the way he speaks with um one of my other siblings. Just it's a matter of, our ages, our lived experiences. It doesn't mean we are not close. It's just different. And in the same way, our conversation and communication with God should be different. For some of us, I've seen people who have a conversation with God as if he's the guy next door. And for some people, it's a formal thing. There's the way they would talk to, say, the president of a country. And there are some people where prayers can be 5 minutes, and some people it is 2 hours. Whatever it is, as long as it is continuous, as long as it is unique to us, as long as it fuels and feeds our relationship with God, so that it grows and it's better. Prayer is a unique thing for everybody, the way you want to converse with God. He is your God. Let that be between the both of you. Someone shouldn't shame anyone else for the way they pray, for the length of time they pray. There are some days where a prayer session is just 2 minutes. I'm talking about me now. It doesn't have to be as long as 8 hours for it to be an effective prayer. Because there have been times when I was younger, much younger, they will get gathered together and meet at the, let's say in the middle of the night, and they'll say there are midnight prayers, and they'll set time and we must pray for 3 hours. Half of the time I wouldn't know what to pray for. I'll be sleepy. Like didn't even want anybody to wake me up. Even as an adult, think of it in a regular conversation with someone. If you were forced to have conversations with the people in your life in a certain way for a certain number of time, with time there'll be nothing to talk about, and you will look forward to those sessions with dread and anxiety and perhaps a lackadaisical attitude. You're not plugged in, you don't care because you're being forced to it. It feels unnatural. There are some days when you talk with a really close friend, and before you know it, 3 hours have gone by because you're catching up on all sorts of things, or just that's the way it flowed that day. And there are some days you meet that same friend, and the conversation is just 2 minutes. It might not be as long, but it's impactful, and you feel fulfilled and uplifted at the end of the conversation. Sometimes it's just to check in. And I think that's how our prayer life should be, how it should be with God. I'm going back to when Christ taught us the Lord's Prayer. I think sometimes we use that as the way we should pray as opposed to a template for prayer. Here is what I mean. When Christ taught us how to pray, he was giving us a template, a guideline. Pretty much your prayer life should always start with praises and worship, with thanking God, with confessing your sins, asking whatever it is you want to ask, and then ending again with thanksgiving. It's a template, it's a guide. It doesn't have to be in that order, but it's like more or less these are the elements that your prayer should contain. There is a reason why a Bible verse says we enter his gates with thanksgiving. We should always be thankful. We should always be asking for forgiveness. Of course, tender our problems before God. Have a conversation with him. Look at Psalms. Psalms is an excellent example of a man who was praying. Psalms is pretty much from the very first chapter to the end. It's pretty much a prayer book, like a prayer diary, David's prayer diary. And you can see there were times when he was really informal. He would ask God, why is it my enemies are prospering? And why is it you said things will go well for me, but look at these people who are trying to attack me? And there are times when it sounds really formal about I'll praise God with the cymbal, and I'll praise you with the harp, and so on and so forth. The reason Psalms, I think, are so impactful is they are raw, honest conversations David had with God. Some of them we see God's response, and who knows however else God responded to David. So the point I'm trying to make is prayers should be enjoyable, should feel easy. We should want to pray. We should want to talk to God. We should want to talk with God. It's a two-way street. When conversation and communication flows easily, it's easy to speak to someone and it's easy to listen to whatever it is they are saying. And that is how prayer should be. And so again, that is why I actually I really like the book. Like, it's really spent the first section talking about how easy prayers can be effective, how to enjoy praying. It's just talking with a friend, So if for nothing else, but that's first section, this is a book I definitely recommend, especially for those of us who haven't built or are still working on building an intimate prayer life with God. It's a really excellent read. Um, and of course, it can be purchased on Amazon and online. So if you do get a chance to read the book or have any thoughts on building a prayer life with God and how to improve it, please share. Let me know. I am really looking forward to your thoughts. Remain blessed.